You are kneeling on limestone 11,500 years ago. Before you lies a pillar heavier than an elephant. Your only cutting edge is flint. There is no pottery, city, or domesticated wheat. Yet your group is raising a monument covered with beasts and human hands. The obvious story says religion came later, after farming could support priests and temples. This hill breaks that order. To learn why, we must open a 100,000-year-old grave, follow red powder into a painted cave, and watch a sacred storehouse become a bank. What exactly were humans inventing? Chapter 1. The first clue. Start with the one event every human group faced. A person stops moving. At Kafze Cave, in what is now Israel, people buried their dead about 100,000 years ago. Pieces of red ochre lay near their bones. The colored mineral had been deliberately carried into the cave. A natural death leaves a body where it falls. A burial changes the place. Someone digs. Someone lifts the body. Others gather and watch. The soil closes over a person everyone knew. We cannot prove what those mourners believed. We can prove they treated a dead person as socially important after death. An absent mind was still shaping the actions of living hands. Burial also gave grief a repeatable form. Place the body here. Add color. Mark the spot. Return later. This was more than an emotion. It was a procedure. But red powder could preserve hides or color skin. A grave alone cannot reveal a spirit world. The next clue had to show that matter could carry a shared meaning. Chapter 2. The costly message. At Blombos Cave on South Africa's coast, people prepared red ochre inside abalone shells about 100,000 years ago. Later visitors cut cross-hatched patterns into ochre and threaded shells as beads. A symbol is a visible thing with an invisible agreement attached. A shell can divide member from stranger. A red mark can turn ordinary skin into a person with a role. The object works only because other minds recognize the rule. Then, about 34,000 years ago, a burial at Sunghyr in Russia made that rule extremely expensive. 2 children were laid head-to-head beneath red ochre. Their clothing held more than 10,000 mammoth ivory beads. 16 ivory spears lay beside them. Those objects took skill and time to make. The group removed real wealth from the living world and sealed it underground. Whatever they meant, everyone followed one costly script. That is a stronger clue. Religion needs people who can make unseen relationships physically costly. Yet beads and ochre still cannot tell us who or what received the message. For that, archaeologists turned to walls covered with animals. Chapter 3. The pictures without a key. Inside Chauvet Cave in southern France, charcoal lions appear to run across bulging rock. Rhinos lock horns. Bears and mammoths crowd the dark. Some images are more than 30,000 years old. These were not simple menu pictures. Many featured animals were dangerous and rarely hunted. People carried light into deep chambers where shadows moved and voices echoed. Researchers have called such art hunting magic. Clan signs, teaching pictures, myths, and visions. Each answer fits some details. None unlocks every cave. The important step was the setting. Darkness separated this place from daily life. A narrow route controlled who entered and what they saw. Repeated visits turned images into an experience shared across generations. The cave shows how ritual can build a special world without constructing a wall, but it cannot tell us whether a lion was a god, an ancestor, or a great story. To see belief organize strangers and heavy labor, we need evidence too large to be private. That evidence was buried under a hill in Turkey. Chapter 4. The Temple Before the Farm. At Göbekli Tepe, beginning around 9600 BCE, hunter-gatherers built great round enclosures. Their T-shaped limestone pillars rose as high as 5.5 meters. Some weighed roughly 10 tons. The builders cut trenches around blocks in the bedrock. They freed the stone with flint tools. Ropes, levers, and many shoulders could drag a pillar downhill. Then the group tipped it upright into a prepared socket. The largest pillars were not plain supports. Carved arms ran down their sides. Hands met above belts. Foxes, snakes, vultures, and boars crossed their surfaces. These stones looked like powerful human-shaped beings standing in a ring. The builders had no pottery, no city, and no mature farming economy. They ate wild plants and hunted animals. Domestic buildings at the site show that some people also lived there. But monumental ritual had arrived before full farming in the state. That reversed the old staircase. Farming was supposed to create surplus. Surplus supported specialists. Specialists then built temples. Göbekli Tepe placed the monumental gathering near the bottom, not the top. It does not prove that worship invented farming. It proves that large ritual projects did not wait for farmers. Groups could gather wild grain, hunt gazelle, prepare a feast, and pay workers in food and belonging. A story is cheap to claim. A 10-ton pillar is not. Its weight made commitment visible. The enclosure also gave scattered groups a repeatable schedule. Arrive on the same hill, prepare the same meal, enter the same ring, face the same carved beings, leave with the same memory. So they could build a sacred center before they built a city. That still does not explain how a gathering became an institution. For that, ritual needed someone who remembered the correct way. Chapter 5. The job that did not exist. At first, that expert could still hunt and gather. Farming changed the job. Stored harvests could feed a person who produced no food at all. Ritual now had a calendar. Someone tracked the season and prepared offerings. Someone learned the words, guarded sacred objects, and settled disputes about the rules. Memory became skilled work. Skilled work became office. In early Mesopotamian cities, a temple was understood as a god's household. It could hold fields, herds, workshops, kitchens, and storerooms. Human staff washed the divine statue, dressed it, served meals, and managed its estate. By about 3200 BCE, Uruk in what is now Iraq had monumental complexes and a vast workforce. Small clay tablets recorded grain and worker rations. Surplus fed ritual specialists. Those specialists gave Surplus a sacred schedule. The priesthood was not simply a person with unusual visions anymore. It was a staff with keys, measures, and records. And once sacred buildings controlled stored food, they gained a power no cave painting possessed. They could make tomorrow depend on a promise made today. Chapter 6. When the god owned the grain. Grain made that promise practical. It could be dried, counted, divided, and locked away. It also had to survive until planting season. A farmer short of seed could borrow barley from a temple storehouse. After harvest, the farmer returned barley, sometimes with interest. A clay tablet fixed the amount and named witnesses. The sacred household had become a lender. The altar now had a loan desk. Temples were never the whole economy. Families, merchants, palaces, and private landowners mattered too. But temples were among the earliest durable institutions that joined storage, records, law, and trust beneath one roof. Religion could now coordinate strangers across seasons under a god's authority. Then cities gave those gods territory. Uruk belonged to Inanna. Nippur belonged to Enlil. The official story said the god owned the city and chose its ruler. Taxes and labor could now be presented as duties within a cosmic order. The clearest clue comes from Babylon. As Babylon grew from a minor city into a great power, its patron god Marduk climbed the divine ranks. Eventually, he stood above the older gods. The state was not merely following heaven, it was editing heaven. A ruler could kneel before a god in public art, then govern as that god's chosen steward. Priests repeated the claim. Festivals staged it. Soldiers marched beneath it. This did not make every believer a victim of a trick. The temple offered festivals, work, food, law, and explanations for disaster. A belief can be sincere and politically useful at the same time. But the method had changed. Ritual once joined mourners around one grave. Now it could join thousands around one ruler. Chapter 7. The real answer. Religion was not one bright invention. Humans assembled several methods. Treat the dead as present. Turn objects into symbols. Repeat acts in special places. Make commitment costly. Train keepers of the rules. Store surplus under sacred care. Let invisible authority guarantee visible promises. The deepest invention was a new kind of group fact. Unseen beings and duties could organize living people. You still see that human skill whenever a crowd falls silent, repeats words, or faces one symbol. Those acts are not all religion. They reveal the same ancient machinery. Shared attention can turn private feeling into public reality. Back on that limestone hill, the pillar heavier than an elephant did more than display belief. Raising it created a community that could believe together. Humans did not invent religion because someone finally found the unseen. They invented ways for the unseen to build the seen world.